Hey, primates, links to the video we react to today are in the description below. Also be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as hit the little bell to be notified whenever we go live or put out new content. It really helps us out. Thank you so much. Enjoy the show. Freaking A. Alright, let's go ahead and drop him a like, drop him a sub. Please go support. I'm gonna share this on the Discord, so you can all go check it out. Looks like this video was made by Sloan. I've not seen Sloan before in my life. Let's see what this is about. Not this is about, but let's see what his channel. Like, I don't know what his channel's about, but I do want to know about Dan Schneider. What he's doing with his toe tendencies.
Working for Dan was like being in an abusive relationship.
Dan's treatment of people on his shows was an open secret.
Gender discrimination, hostile work environment, harassment.
How safe can any kids be in that environment?
Dan Schneider now wants to sue Quiet on Set for defamation of character.
He's just mad he's never going to be able to get a job again after this.
Dan Schneider is suing documentary makers and streaming platforms for setting him up to look like a creep and to push a narrative that he's some kind of predator. But in all actuality, his lawsuit isn't helping his case. He might feel like he's some big threat, but even if his defamation case moves forward, he won't be on the winning side when his...
Let's be real. He's like... Defamation is one of the most incredibly difficult things to ever freaking prove. It's very difficult to prove. Like, he's not gonna be able to, bro. It's a documentary. As long as they didn't lie, then it's fine. And even then, he has to prove that they lost him money.
Potential victims like Amanda Bynes or Jeanette McCurdy will be called in to testify and really expose Dan Schneider for good. So let's get into it. Now, I have a feeling that this is a tactic by Dan Schneider and his team to make it so that when you Google him, you see that he is now suing the documentary for making him appear as if he's a criminal.
My bad. I sent that video back to Mr. Gamer instead of actually freaking posting it on the cantina. My bad. There we go. Alright, sorry. Let's get back to it.
Which that is still up for debate. Frankly, I don't believe that Dan Schneider has a case here. I think that he is just trying to create some headlines that make it seem like he could be innocent. I mean, for example, saying that he's suing this docuseries for defamation. They report Dan Schneider has sued Investigative Discovery for defamation over his portrayal in Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV. If you guys have not seen this series yet, it's on HBO Max, and essentially it tells the story of Drake Bell and various employees at Nickelodeon who worked closely to Dan Schneider and their terrible experiences on set. We don't have anyone who have come forward and said that Dan had physically harmed them or had touched them well, actually, no, that's wrong. We haven't had any minors come forward and say this. We actually had costume designers who said that they were pressured by their boss to give him massages. And there's no doubt in my mind that, you know, he did things that were probably illegal in the workplace and definitely far from being okay. But now Dan is accusing the company of falsely implying that he SA'd children.
Just forcing your employees to give you a massage is pretty freaking weird.
Who worked on the Nickelodeon series he created and ran. Which I want to be clear, while we don't have any, you know, proof or witnesses or I guess victims who have come forward and said that yes, he had harmed minors in these ways, we've seen a lot of things that suggest this, and it's not the documentary's fault. Because, I mean, those clips of Ariana Grande and what he made her do with the potato and sucking on her own toes, I mean, I think we could say that's objectively wrong without saying maybe it's not explicitly illegal.
Your uvula is that swingy thing in the back of your throat right here. So there's no way you could get it stuck between a hamster's toes. Sentence number 3. I'm soaking wet! Quick, somebody Buddy, bring me the ocean! Have you ever tried to get your whole big toe in your mouth? Check this out. Sometimes I wonder if you can get juice from a potato.
Yeah, Dan, you're like, maybe you don't save these.
Those Ariana Grande clips will never be okay, but Dan Schneider filed a lawsuit on Wednesday in the LA Superior Court, saying his depiction in the 5-part docuseries is a hit job. While it's true that two child worked on the network shows, he had no knowledge of their harm and condemned it and was not an himself, he claims, which, you know, he was aware of what happened with Brian Peck, but again, this happened after the lawsuit had already been filed and he had been charged.
Mr. Dan Schneider now wants to sue Quiet on Set for defamation of character because they're painting him as, yeah. How do you think that's going to play out? What do you think is going to happen? You're going to go to court and they're going to be like, yeah, you're right. This is defamation of character. Do it. Go to court and watch all that evidence just be piled on top of you, not to mention the people that are recently speaking out about their experiences working alongside.
Dude, the moment he actually does this, people, like, with any luck or any, like, I'm just saying, like, there's a, like, if there is any other victims, if there is anyone out there that freaking, you know, will has any experiences, something like that could help them come out and, like, admit something. But that depends on if there is anyone else, you know? But just in general, typically, like, once you start to get into a court case, it opens up discovery. And it opens up situations where you have more access to more of Dan Schneider's, like, secrets and files and stuff, because you can pretty much request anything you want so long as it pertains to the court case, you know?
You and a part of your network.
Now, Dan is saying that we're calling him some abuser, like some child abuser.
You can pretty much, like, put all the evidence in front of the world in the court.
But it is true that Nickelodeon child actors allege that Dan fostered a toxic and unsafe work environment for adults and children alike. Actors from his show appeared in the documentary and spoke about being put in situations that were unsuitable for children and reflected on the inappropriate jokes and sketches that they took part in. Again, very much Dan Schneider's
Like, I just
fault.
gotta say something.
About being child.
Like,
now,
can I
Dan
just
is
say
saying
something?
That we're calling him some abuser, like some child abuser, which
when I take pictures with ladies,
fact or fiction,
with
but
gals, in general, like, I don't know, like, I don't feel like there's anything wrong necessarily with quote-unquote physical. Like, if you were to hug someone and take a picture, you know, your right arm on their shoulder, their arm on your shoulder, you know, that's an okay thing. But bro really has to go for, like, the weird
child actors allege
really
that
has to go
Dan
for the
fostered
choking,
a
has to go
toxic
with the
and
grabbing
unsafe
both
work
their
environment
shoulders.
for adults and children alike. Actors from his show
Like, just take a
appeared
normal
in the
picture with him,
documentary and
bro.
spoke about being put in situations that were unsuitable for children and reflected on the inappropriate jokes and sketches that they took part in. Again, very much Dan Schneider's fault.
Working for Dan was like being in an abusive relationship.
Dan's treatment of people on his shows was an open secret.
So my lawyer filed complaints, gender discrimination, hostile work environment, harassment, and it was so devastating.
How safe can any kids be in that environment?
Now, if Dan Schneider has any case here at all, it's going to surround the suggestions and the mystery behind what could have been. I mean, that one woman was quoted as saying that, like, how could any children be safe in this environment if this is how he's treating the adults? Which kind of leaves an open question to what could have these kids gone through, you know, at Dan Schneider's hands. I mean, we heard Drake Bell reveal that as a child, he was harmed by Brian Peck, his dialogue coach for Nickelodeon, and a close friend to Dan Schneider. Other revelations from the series include 2 female writers saying they're forced to split a salary, and the fact that 41 people wrote letters of support during Brian Peck's trial against Drake Bell. The documentary also pointed out, which we have talked about for years on this channel, that there were other offenders who
like, bro, even without the suggestion of what could have happened necessarily, it's everything else that's also just really bad, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's still plenty. We take that away, and you still got plenty of stuff about Dan Schneider. Like, that's like, are you kidding me?
present at Dan Schneider's shows and hired
He's
by
not. Is he
Dan
denying
and
the
very close to
massages?
Dan. So seeing
Has
all
he
this,
publicly come out to
really,
deny those
Danny boy,
massages?
if people think this about you, it's
I
kind
need
of
to
your
know,
own
Sloan.
fault.
Sorry, Sloan. I don't mean to like be blocking you like that either.
Began at age 15.
I'll put myself right here. I'll put myself on this side. It looks like you like to be on the right side.
Manipulation. One day, I was just on the phone to my mom. I just exploded. I just screamed into the phone everything that had been happening to me.
Let's talk about the case that Dan Schneider is trying
That's
to
gotta be
build.
traumatizing,
Dan's attorneys
dude.
call the series a hit job according to the lawsuit. In the introduction of the complaint, they write that the producers falsely state or imply that Dan had harmed these children who worked on his shows. One thing I want to point
I don't know about implying that. That would be more of a direct statement or something like that. That doesn't seem like it would really fit.
out here is that they say that, you know, in the introduction of the complaint, they make these allegations. Well, I do wonder whether they have the entire complaint or if they were just sent the introduction, because a lot of times when someone wants to garner some press about a story, they will go and send the, you know, the complaint to the media before even the complaint is truly filed. They write, while it's indisputable that the two did work on these Nickelodeon shows, it is likewise indisputable that Dan Schneider had no knowledge of their harm and was not complicit in their actions. But for the sake of clickbait, rating, and views, or put differently, money, defendants have destroyed Dan Schneider's reputation and legacy through the false statements and implications that Dan Schneider is exactly that. Well, exactly what? Because we've got people over here saying that he forced them to massage. I think that's enough. In the lawsuit, the attorneys argued that the voiceover, graphics, and the docuseries trailer played a part in making it seem like Dan was a harmer. You guys know we can't use certain language on YouTube, so I'm trying to get around it. You know, he's a child harmer, like a loser. These assets are purposely and intentionally defamatory, and that they falsely and repeatedly state or imply that Dan Schneider is this person and committed crimes in this regard. They continue, they've been interpreted as such by countless average, ordinary, or reasonable viewers. Essentially, this lawsuit saying that if someone had came across Dan Schneider and these Nickelodeon shows for the first time through this documentary series, they would in fact think that Dan Schneider is this kind of monster because of how everything was played out.
The lawsuit accuses...
Let's see. I feel like the average person would see that documentary honestly, the more I think about it, it's like, no, dude, like, if people see you as a monster in that instance, it's because of your own actions. I feel like most people would not look at that and be like, whoa, what if he maybe is a Geppetto? No, it's more the fact that you forced your employee, like, because, you know, even removing that in its entirety, there's still plenty here to, like, not, to so to speak, to cancel him over, so plenty here to not want to hire him over. The fact that he forced his employees to massage him, the fact that he forced two employees, female employees, to share one salary. Absurd. Absolutely absurd.
Warner Brothers, Maxine
and
Productions,
me,
Sony Pictures, and producers Mary...
Hey. My doggo ripped my sock off my foot! He really grabbed my freaking sock and, like, pulled it off. I was, like, struggling. I was, like, having a tug-of-war with him. Like, under the desk. Y'all couldn't see none of that, but it was, like, happening, and I was, like, trying to not get distracted by it. You know, I was like, alright, no, that's okay. You'll just freaking play a game of footsie, so to speak, with the doggos. A little tug-of-war. Freaking, then he won! And he took the sock and ran off with it. Alright, relax. No, you're not getting back the sock. Chill.
Robertson and Emma Schwartz of Defamation. If you ask me, that 19 minutes of horrible acting admitted guilt. Suing the producers for falsely accusing him of essaying children. Never once in that documentary is that mentioned a hostile work environment. You want some face squishes? You want to get your face squished? Squeeze, squeeze. Slip on his behalf at his work.
Now, Dan Schneider told Time magazine in an email statement that the documentary series had some of his mistakes and poor judgment. He said, "There's no doubt that I was..." I mean, that your mistakes and poor judgment, if it, like, again,
if you are being defamed, it is not because this documentary came out. It is because your own actions. Like, it has nothing to do, like...
Sometimes a bad leader, and I am apologetic and regretful for that behavior. But he says, however, after seeing Quiet on Set and its trailer and the reactions to them, I sadly have no choice but to
see, that's what, you see, it's in the wording, dude. After seeing the documentary, the trailer, and the reactions to them, so he's like, specifically, if this, like, fell under the radar, this, like, documentary, and, like, nobody watched it, nobody talked about it, there was nothing happening for it, he would have been fine with it, is basically what he's saying. But it's the fact that people paid attention, and people, like, are actually, like, mad at him about it.
Action against the people behind it. Ooh, that's heavy. I mean, I worked with that Emma girl.
Like, dude, defamation, like, you'd be, like, the easiest way would be, like, if somebody made up lies about you.
I wonder if they, like,
to slander you.
Uncover, like, our emails or our phone calls or whatever between me and her, because
it's gonna be real difficult to prove that this was
Alexa was like, hey, like,
a hit piece to ruin his career, you know? That's defamation.
Like, sure,
if you were doing it specifically
to support allegedly false claims that he was a child predator. The lawsuit says
I personally, I'm not a lawyer, right? But I personally feel like they did not support any false claims. Nobody claimed that. People were just, you know... Now, it's one thing to be like, man, what would have happened if nobody interfered or intervened? That's one thing, right? Let me put myself back over to where I was. But if you freaking... Yeah, no, in this case, I don't, like, from the little bit that I saw here, I haven't watched the whole documentary, it didn't seem like anybody was saying he's a Geppetto, you know?
Docu-series explores the perversions
it's
of
one
the
thing
shows
to be
he created.
like, oh man, it could have been way worse. Think about what may have happened if we...
children do things that were very weird, you know? And setups that referenced adult content.
They're just straight up calling
I think we can acknowledge that that's true. I mean, have you not seen the Ariana Grande bit?
Is it possible for a teenage girl to drink water upside down? I'm thirsty. It's not possible.
I mean, this entire thing, all the video, all the stuff is like, Dan, this is suspicious, my dude. Nobody say it like, you know what I'm saying? Nobody is just randomly saying he might be a Geppetto for like no reason. And if this here gets put in the courtroom, it's over. They just gotta show this. Like, yeah, he did this.
Come on, give up the juice.
In the second episode of the series, users are introduced to Brian Peck and Jason Handy. The lawsuit targets the docuseries repeatedly cutting to images of him while discussing the duo. It claims that the episode continues its manipulative use of its editing and photographs to conflate that Dan Schneider was very close to...
Good luck trying to prove that editing and photographs are statements, by the way.
...to these men, Brian Peck and Jason Handy, when, I mean... kind of seems like he was. I mean, they didn't like just Photoshop or AI these images. These images do exist. And from my understanding, Dan Schneider is the one who
they showed evidence of the fact that I was friends with this guy.
As the say on who to hire. I mean, he could, again, that could be wrong, my opinion, but I would assume since he runs the show, he gets to pick who is employed there. That episode ends with a voiceover from a reporter stating that the suspected child predator charged with kissing and touching a 9-year-old girl had been arrested, but that law enforcement believes that there are many more victims. Dan Schneider claims that producers intentionally chose not to show the perpetrator's likeness or name so viewers can conclude that he, Dan Schneider, was the perpetrator.
Dan Schneider can get mad about what the Quiet on Set documentary said all he wants to, but they never once said anything that wasn't factually correct. And you can't deny that. Like, he's just mad he's never going to be able to get a job again after this.
Yeah, exactly. Like, because if they didn't, like... The only good way to make a defamation case is if they lied in order to slander you, in order to defame you.
Dan Schneider in the lawsuit maintains that he was unaware of Brian Peck's crimes until it became public record and that he did not commit any crimes himself. Quote, the only reason to include Dan's image in this context was to falsely equate Dan with Brian Peck, make them seem like they are very similar. The viewer is left to infer that just as Brian Peck was a Dan Schneider was also...
No, because if they were accusing you, they would have said Dan Schneider was sued for, kissing a 9-year-old, but they didn't say that, did they?
Complacent. Notably, producers at one point in the docuseries do note that Dan Schneider was not found to have engaged in inappropriate behavior after then Nickelodeon parent Viacom CBS launched an investigation. He cites the inclusion of the information as proof that the producers were aware that they were advancing...
No, that's proof that they said you did not commit any crimes. Like, bro's an idiot. You just literally proved yourself wrong. You've already disproved your own freaking case.
Allegations, which kind of has a point. I mean, they made it very clear that Dan Schneider has not been charged with any child crimes, because if you were to watch this without that context, you would think so. So Dan does have a point there, but then the bigger question is, what has he been accused of? What could we dive into? And if this goes to court, there will be discovery and investigation into possible allegations. I mean, people like Amanda Bynes could be called in and...
Because, Dan is saying that they're trying to make it seem like he committed crimes, but then he says that they specifically said he did not commit crimes.
Asked, did he do anything
like
this? What
do you mean?
And what if she were to tell the truth, and the truth included a story that does implicate him? He will have much bigger fish to fry. So I'm wondering if he's assuming the docuseries will settle with him, or at least just pay him all the money they made. Dan stresses that the docuseries should have clarified in the trailer or earlier episodes that he did not commit any crimes. Dan claims the producers acted with actual malice and purposeful disregard for the truth, a necessary element to establish defamation as a public figure. According to the complaint, they chose not to include an interview with a former Nickelodeon president of content. So I guess the docuseries creators did interview a Nickelodeon president who said that Dan Schneider was not a predator. And I guess he wants to revisit that interview and say, hey, you guys had the other side of the story, but you chose not to include it so that you could push this narrative that I'm a monster. Which I think we can still have that opinion that he is a monster with what we already know about him. I mean, even seeing the content he created in the scenes that he put these children through is enough for me. The fact that he's making these writers share a salary, he's making these wardrobe people massage him, it's enough for me. Dan wrote that the documentary went beyond reporting the truth and falsely implied that I was involved in or facilitated horrific crimes for which actual child predators had been prosecuted and convicted. His statement ends by saying that he's not opposed to owning up to his wrongdoings, but he feels that it's wrong to mislead millions of people to the false conclusion that he was in any way involved in horrendous acts like those committed by child predators. Dan Schneider is seeking an unspecified amount in damages and is ordering the producers to remove the allegedly defamatory portions of the docuseries or have it completely taken down, which is a really big ask. And as someone who does not like censorship, who stands by the First Amendment, I would be damned if they got this docuseries removed. This person commented, I can't believe you, Dan Schneider, wrote or allowed these kids to do what they did and not think that you're some kind of a Another person wrote, I don't remember them saying that he harmed kids. They just made it out that he was likely a creep, which is
yeah, and see, you can't, he needs to prove that was the intention and that is the result of, that people are going to that. And you're not going to do that. That's just impossible, I feel like.
Heavily backed by an array of evidence. Another person wrote to Dan that you were okay with the company hiring known predators around your hired chose actors. Please, on top of inappropriate scripts, kids scripts, oh no, Mr. Nasty, take it, be glad you're not in jail yourself, seriously. Another person wrote, only the kids who were can tell us if Dan is innocent. And another person wrote, it's hard to sue someone for stating the truth. So it seems like the public is supporting the docuseries and is joining their side, which I would support as well, especially because I believe in freedom of speech. If Dan Schneider wants to go and create a docuseries to support himself, then go ahead and do it. Fund it. You're a producer. Go ahead and create your docuseries, which will show that you are actually innocent and that you've been a saint this entire time, and then these predators are who's wrong, and that you are actually a victim yourself. I would love to see it because
Dan,
I would have to see it to believe it. And I really hope this lawsuit goes forward.
Make sure there's a camera in the courtroom, though.
Dive into what Dan Schneider really
live
has
stream
been
it. Live stream the court.
But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in a new video soon. Bye, guys.
Great freaking video, my dude. Very informative. Love it. Absolutely great. Go and check them out. Drop a subscribe. Drop a like. Get them some support, my dudes. Phenomenal, phenomenal. Thank you so much, primates, for watching this all the way to the end. Also, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as hit the little bell for a rainbow explosion that will go ahead and notify you every single time we go live or put out new content. Thank you so much. Goodbye, and thanks for swinging by.